presenters and everybody here to the Institute for Migration and Ethnic Studies, here using our lovely space from Hrvatska Matica Iselnika. I'd like to warmly welcome you all to today's discussions on inclusive policies and practices for attracting, integrating and retaining returnees, second and further generation Croatian and Slovenian families into their school communities. To open our discussions, I'd like to welcome Juro Ovgastinovic to speak to us on behalf of the Konrad Adenauer Foundation.
Dobar dan svima. Poštovani predstavnici Ministarstva unutarnjih poslova Republike Hrvatske, poštovani zamjeniče državnog tajnika, poštovani predavači i gosti predavači iz Slovenije, poštovani predavači s Instituta za migracije i narodnosti, draga Nataša, dame i gospodo. Veliko mi je zadovoljstvo što sve ove okupljene mogu pozdraviti u ime direktora Ureda zaklade Konrad Adenauer za Hrvatsku i Sloveniju, gospodina Holgera Hajbaha. Nažalost, gospodin Hajbah danas ne može biti s nama zbog zdravstvenih razloga, ali ovim putem vam prenosim njegove srdačne pozdrave. Za one koji me ne znaju, evo iskoristit ću kratku priliku da se predstavim. Ja sam Juro Avgustinović i projektni sam koordinator u Uredu zaklade Konrad Adenauer za Hrvatsku i Sloveniju, ali isto tako radim i u odjelu za PR i marketing, pa evo i time se između ostalog bavim. Za one koji ne znaju i još nisu čuli za zakladu Konrad Adenauer, dopustite mi da u kratkim crtama dodam da je zaklada Konrad Adenauer njemačka politička zaklada sa sjedištem u Berlinu i bliska je Kršćansko-demokratskoj uniji Njemačke, koja je trenutačno pod vodstvom Friedricha Merza. Financirana je gotovo isključivo iz državnih sredstava, a svojim radom u zemlji i inozemstvu posebno pridonosi promicanju demokracije, vladavine prava i socijalnog tržišnog gospodarstva, dok su joj vodeća načela sloboda, pravednost i solidarnost. Zaklada je dobila ime po prvom njemačkom saveznom poslijeratnom kancelaru, doktoru Konradu Adenaueru. Smjernice koje je on postavio u razdoblju dok je obnašao ovu funkciju, od 1949. do 1963. još i danas određuju ne samo unutarnje ustrojstvo i vanjsku političku orijentaciju Savezne Republike Njemačke, već njegova uvjerenja nastavljaju usmjeravati rad zaklade Konrad Adenauer kako u Njemačkoj, tako i inozemstvu. Zaklada već više od 20 godina potiče bilateralni politički dijalog između naših dviju država, te svojim raznovrsnim aktivnostima i mjerama pridonosi političkom obrazovanju, jačanju demokracije i političke kulture. Pri tome dijalog obuhvaća i pitanja koja se tiču današnje konferencije. Dijalog se odvija kako s predstavnicima partnerskih stranaka, zemalja uključenih u Europsku pučku stranku, tako i između predstavnika dotičnih vlada, ministarstava, ostalih političkih institucija, nevladinih organizacija i institucija civilnog društva. Dame i gospodo, danas smo se ovdje okupili kako bismo razgovarali o migracijama, demografskim trendovima, hrvatskoj dijaspori i povratku hrvatskih iseljenika u Republiku Hrvatsku. Za nas, kao predstavnike zaklade, bitno je razgovarati o izazovima s kojima se suočavaju povratnici u Republiku Hrvatsku. Pogotovo se to odnosi na prvu i treću generaciju i sve ostale generacije povratnika kojima je jako teško integrirati se u postojeće društvo u Hrvatskoj. Što zbog nedostatka jezika, a s druge strane i zbog samog shvaćanja kulture i hrvatskog mentaliteta. Sa sličnim izazovima se susreću i njihova djeca koja nastavljaju školovanje u Republici Hrvatskoj i koja se moraju prilagoditi ne samo društvu, ne samo svojim vršnjacima, već i cjelokupnom hrvatskom obrazovnom sustavu. Međutim, unatoč svim izazovima s kojima se susreću, ne smijemo zaboraviti veliki potencijal koji se krije u tim ljudima i kojega oni zapravo sami donose sa sobom time što su tu u Hrvatskoj i na taj način svakako obogaćuju naše društvo. Stoga smatramo kao zaklada da ih u svakom aspektu njihove prilagodbe trebamo snažno podupirati. Dame i gospodo, upravo davanje prijedloga i pronalaženje rješenja za izazove ovog tipa s kojima se naši ljudi u Hrvatskoj povratnici susreću, nama je jedan od najvažnijih, to je zapravo jedna od najvažnijih značajki suradnje između Zaklade Konrad Adenauer i Instituta za migracije i narodnosti. Neki od naših dugogodišnjih partnera i prijatelja, među koji su i ovdje danas s nama, sudjeluju u ovom poduhvatu, pa bih i ovom prilikom želio zahvaliti svima koji ste nam ovih godina pomagali u ovom zadatku. Uvjeren sam da ćemo nastaviti uspješnu suradnju i u budućnosti, te na taj način zajedno doprinijeti razvoju Republike Hrvatske u svakom smislu. Veselim se zanimljivoj i plodonosnoj raspravi i želim vam svima puno uspjeha. Hvala vam na pažnji.
Thank you, Laura. I'd like to begin by thanking Konrad Adenauer Foundation for their long-standing support and collaboration with us, and in particular, the impeccable work of Holger Heibach and Juro Augustinovic. Following today's discussions, the Konrad Adenauer Foundation has graciously organised for us finger foods and with refreshments, which will be served outside in the hall for everybody. For ease of discussions, if you would like, we can use the word returnees to also incorporate second and third generations who have moved here to Croatia. As this is an international roundtable, we are using both English and Croatian language, whichever is more suitable for the speaker. Apologies have been sent to us by Zdravka Bušić and Željka Josić, as they have been called to attend Parliament in their official capacities today. It is unfortunate for us, but it is part of their roles. I'd like to thank Zdravka Bušić for her collaboration and time leading up to this event, and she sends us her well wishes today for a successful event. Her office has viewed this issue as highly important, and today representing the Parliamentary Committee for Croatians Abroad is Mirela Greguric, Secretary of the Parliamentary Committee, and her colleague Marina Vunic-Lončarić. So thank you for coming. Thank you for your attendance. I would like to thank Dario Magdic, Deputy State Secretary for the Central Office for Croatians Abroad, for his continual support and collaboration with our research team and our community. I would like to thank our special guests coming to us today from Slovenia, Dr. Dejan Valentincic, who is head of the Center for Social Science Research, American Slovenian Education Foundation, Dr. Klara Kužar-Rusulnik, and Dr. Marijanca Aisha Vigentin, both attending from the Slovenian Migration Institute as part of the Research Center of the Slovenian Academy of Sciences and Arts. Thank you to our local representatives, Ivana Lucev, who's here from the Directorate for Immigration, Citizenship and Administrative Affairs from the Ministry of the Interior, and Ivan Aurora, representing the Croatian Heritage Foundation. And of course, thank you to all our audience members for your interest and support, which contains many young people who are our future leaders. So thank you all for coming. IMEN, the Institute za migracije i narodnosti, has a specialized interdisciplinary group who focus their research, including applied research, on investigating questions related to Croatians abroad and returnees. Today we are gathering representatives from key organisations who currently have expertise in the area of return education or returnee issues, whose offices have specific policies or practices relating to returnees or those who are currently in the process of creating such policies. This roundtable is the first of two, with today's purpose being to gain a wider picture of what we are currently doing in this area. The second roundtable, which will be held in Ljubljana, will follow on with what is needed and types of policies and programs that can be put in place to assist returnee families. At that roundtable, recommendations will be made reporting on our discussions to other organisations, departments and ministries, hoping to invite them to join us to improve perhaps their services and to improve ours in this area. During the school year, children spend much of their waking hours in school, impacting on their intellectual, emotional, and social growth. Both our countries have agreed to the UN Rights of the Child directives, which include the right to achieve to their potential. At the heart of all discussions, we must remember this aspect, that it is about them and their lives and their futures. We must ask ourselves, what do we want the future of our countries to look like? By providing all children with the opportunity to achieve their best, we bring a future generation of leaders who will be knowledgeable and capable. Families move back to Croatia and Slovenia, sometimes for a better life, and sometimes they leave security and well-paid jobs and come because they want to contribute to building Croatia or Slovenia's future. That is why I came 9 years ago. Nevertheless, many families do have difficulties, and we are finding in our research are also leaving. Not because of politics, corruption, low salaries, but because of their children not being able to integrate well into the education system, and with the sad acknowledgement for their children's future to be able to achieve their educational goals. They return to where they came from. Although this situation is complex, I personally believe that we can improve integrating and retaining our returnees through a shared responsibility and the development of a sense of school community. I call on all of you to give our children their best chance. Some students here from Australia and one from Canada with their friends will present to you a small play which shows what a simple difference in attitude and understanding can give when we see a newcomer who needs support in joining our community. So I'd like you to welcome our children who will give a little presentation.
Proputovao sam preko pola svijeta kako bi preselio Hrvatsku ovoga ljeta. Zabava na moru, fina hrana, a ni plivanje mi nije slabija strana. Nauživao sam se zemlje mojih predaka, no odjednom neka treba me hvata. Moram vam reći istinu golu, nervozan sam radi odlaska u školu.
I used to be good at math in Australia. What's a trokut?
Luka, ja ne znam kako ste to radili u Australiji, ali u Hrvatskoj se ne priča na satu.
Ili?
Naprijed. Dobar dan. Djeco, ovo je Luka. On je došao iz Australije, pridružit ćemo se na školskoj godini. U redu, danas za sat matematike radimo geometriju. Molim vas sve da nacrtate trokut.
I used to be good at math in Australia. What's a trokut? Oh, a triangle.
Profesorice,
Da.
jel smijem ja prevesti neke pojmove Luki, zato što ne znam?
Naravno, hvala vam.
Možda li to znati na mnogo tako što još? Možda i to mnogo što
What?
Do you want to come play soccer with us after school?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Great.
So, there can be a big difference in our lives by the way that you treat us just by your first impressions. If you are more welcome and give us a more warm greeting and try to include us, it can change our lives for the better and make us feel, well, way better in the society and the schools that we are in. Thank you.
we have the presentation. No, no, Vladimir. Just so we can see the screen. If it works, if it's working. Thank you to our youth who've presented this concept well for you, and the small things we can do to make a big difference in the lives of people that come, and they really do make a big difference. I'd like to now call on Dario Magdic, our Deputy State Secretary for the Central State Office for Croats Board, to give this introductory speech. Thank you.
Is this for me? Can I? Dobar dan, lijepi pozdrav, poštovane dame i gospodo. Meni je velika čast i zadovoljstvo, kao i uvijek, pozdraviti vas ispred Središnjeg državnog ureda za Hrvate izvan Republike Hrvatske, u ime našeg državnog tajnika, gospodina Zvonka Milasa, svoje osobno ime i ime kolega u našem malom uredu koji rade za Hrvate izvan Republike Hrvatske, a u posljednje vrijeme sve više i za Hrvate izvan Republike Hrvatske koji su se vratili i uselili ili doselili u Republiku Hrvatsku. Odmah na početku želim zahvaliti Nataši, Iminu, Institutu za migracije i narodnosti, kao organizatorima današnjeg događanja, Konrad Adenauer Stiftungu ili zakladi na partnerstvu, dragim prijateljima i kolegama iz Slovenije što su se pridružili ovome događanju, kolegici iz Ministarstva unutarnjih poslova i svima vama, mladi ljudi koji ste, vjerujem, sa interesom, ne po nekoj obavezi došli danas malo poslušati ove teme koje se, vjerujem, i nekih od vas tiču. Nama je bilo veliko zadovoljstvo prihvatiti ovaj poziv i zahvaljujem se i još jednom na upućenom pozivu i na organizaciji samog događanja koji je, kako smo i mogli čuti od gospodina Augustinovića, u misiji i dijelu Konrad Adenauer zaklade isto tako i sastavni dio politika, praksi, programa i projekata koje provodi Središnji državni ured za Hrvate izvan Republike Hrvatske i predstavljaju jedan od važnih posebnih ciljeva koji stremimo ostvariti, a to je poticanje povratka i useljavanja Hrvata izvan Republike Hrvatske u Republiku Hrvatsku. Vjerujem da ćemo danas čuti puno zanimljivih izlaganja, dobiti vrijedne preporuke koje ćemo moći implementirati u neke buduće strateške ili programske akte kojima bi unaprijedili naše politike i aktivnosti u svrhu pune i kvalitetnije integracije svih onih kojima je ona potrebna, a kako bi, i kako je rečeno, bili na korist hrvatskog društva i svojim povratkom obogatili naše društvo u cjelini. Veselim se raspravi koja slijedi, s nadom da ćemo provesti ugodno vrijeme, puno toga naučiti i moći to svakako primijeniti u buduće u našem radu. Za sada toliko od mene. Hvala vam svima.
Unfortunately, we have a difficult situation. After seeing this speaker, Dr. Marijanca Aisha Vižintin, speak in Slovenia, I was very impressed with her concepts and wanted to invite her here today to speak with us. She will be giving the keynote address. However, she organised an excellent presentation for us, which I've seen, and for some reason our laptops aren't being recognised by the system. So she will give her speech without the excellent presentation, and I know that she does make very good use of slides. So I apologise to you, Marijanca, and I hope that with your understanding she will be able to give us the key concepts. I know it will still be an amazing speech. So please, would you give a warm welcome to Dr. Marijanca Aisha Vižintin.
Thank you for the invitation, Dr. Ružić. I will talk about migration and intercultural education today, and I would like to concentrate on two topics, on emigration and immigration perspective, and what can be done about that in education. Who is responsible for integration? Slovenia, as you might know, is a country of emigration and immigration. Actually, the numbers are quite the same about the people who are coming to the country and who are leaving to the country. And not just the numbers, also the education of people who are coming and leaving, it is quite similar. The most frequent reason that people come to Slovenia is work. From 50 to 60%, the reason that people arrive to Slovenia is because they want to get work. And the second most common reason is family reunion. Around 35% of people came in 2021 because they wanted to live together. If we see a wider picture, the last 10 years, we get similar data. We have positive migration saldo. More people are immigrating than emigrating. But still, we often hear, we are just a transit country. We don't need to worry about integration. They will live. And we have enough of our own problems. Have you ever heard that? Yes, some of you have. It doesn't matter whether we speak about returners, whether we speak about migrant workers, whether we speak about asylum seekers. I think this is very important, and I want to say this clearly. It doesn't matter. The crucial thing is that kids go to school and that adults have possibility to enter the labor market as soon as possible. The grandchildren that are coming from the people who left Croatia, are they really only the returners? If they were born somewhere else, they actually don't know anything about Croatia or a little. The image of the land they have from their grandparents, it's not the same as Croatia and Slovenia are today. The land has changed, the language has changed, the school system has changed. So if they don't know the language, the first issue is to teach them the language. And of course, everybody needs a possibility to go to the school. Again, it doesn't matter whether we talk about returnees, migrant workers, or asylum seekers. And adults have to go to work to earn their own money. We need to change the legislation and give people the opportunity. So I will concentrate on education system, and I will ask you, who is responsible? Usually the answer is, they are. I don't think so. I think we are responsible. We all are responsible. Politicians that pass new legislation are responsible. Ministry of Education, public organizations such as libraries and museums. Why? Why libraries and museums? Because they need to involve that kind of topic connected to migration into their collections. I talk about the books, I talk about migration processes. Why did people leave? Is migration really something new? No, it's not. People always migrate, they did, and they will in the future. So this is nothing special. Teachers are responsible, local communities, universities that prepare future teachers. Are the future teachers, nowadays students, prepare for the diversity that they will face when they will enter the school system? The Croatians born here, the Croatians that came back because of their parents or grandparents, the asylum seekers, the children of workers who don't speak the language. Are we prepared for that? Then research institutes like it is ours and this house. Countries of origin, countries who receive new migrants and migrants themselves. I believe that we are all responsible. I was asked to talk a little bit about Slovenia. So the first progress I would like to mention are intensive language courses. And they are not meant just for the children that came back. Came back. Did they really come back? They are meant for all kids, for all migrants. So if they arrive and if they don't speak the language, they get intensive language courses. In primary school, it goes up to 180 hours for the beginning, And in the secondary schools, it goes up to 160 hours. And then they have to pass a test on A2 level. And if they don't, they get extra hours until they pass A2 level. And besides intensive language course that has to start when children arrive, not somewhere in the February, at the beginning of the new school year. But if the kids come in the February, it starts in the February. We don't wait for them to learn the language. They need to be taught. And besides intensive language course, they also have a right to individual program. It is written for every kid, at least it is written in the legislation. The legislation it is quite new. This is a possibility we have, and it's not being done in every school, I have to say that. We have a possibility, a lot of schools have developed, and a lot of schools are doing their job, but not all of them. So besides intensive language course, we need individual program that follows the progress. In primary school for 2 years. In secondary school for at least 1 year. Then the second progress is we have a lot of new didactic material for Slovenian as a second language for different age, for kindergarten children, for primary school, and for secondary school. We didn't have that kind of material like 15 years ago. We had a lot of excellent books to learn Slovenian as a second language for students and adults. But nowadays we can start from the kindergarten. And the third very important progress is didactic material for intercultural dialogue. That gives the teachers the possibility to talk about migration, integration, discrimination issues during the regular classes, because migration is nothing new. I would just like to remember that around 50 million of people left Europe before the Second World War started, and then even more. It looks like Europe is pretending that migration is something new, which each word that starts, it's like it has never been done before, but it is, and it will be in the future. We will have wars, and we will have need for workers to come, because we are a society that is being older and older, and we need people to work. If you have a possibility to go to the north of Germany, I would like you to visit German Immigration Center. Why? Because it talks about both perspectives. It talks about Germans going abroad and people coming to Germany nowadays. The same story is going on in Sweden. They have emigration because a lot of people emigrated from Sweden 100 years ago, as they did from this place, because they were so poor, because there was not enough land to survive 10 kids. So they have these emigration centers, and at the same time, they give voices to the newcomers in books, in museums, in libraries. And then we have, I mentioned libraries. We have so many books written by migrants themselves about their own experiences, because Dr. Ružić is the woman with experiences. And I think this is important, that when we try to change something, that we cooperate with people who have that kind of experience. I cannot talk about how do you feel when you go abroad and you have to start to learn new language and you have to do all the documentation, and it takes in Slovenia 10 years to get a Slovenian citizenship. I have no idea about that. But because I spoke with so many people who had that experience, now I do have a clue how difficult it is, and how it is not easy to learn a new language if you don't speak it. You need at least 3 to 5 years for a basic level. You need 7 to 8 years for professional level. It takes time. Those people are not stupid. It just takes time to learn the new language. We have just concluded a 5-year national project. It's called Only with Others Are We, in Slovenian Les drugimi smo. The target groups were teachers in kindergartens, primary schools, and secondary schools. Please, Dr. Ružić, if anyone wants PowerPoint, okay, just send it to them, okay? So in this project, we talked about integration, we talked about migration, we talked about challenges and discrimination that we all face. For 5 years, we were traveling all around the country and we reached more than 10,000 teachers. Our expert groups entered kindergartens, primary schools, and secondary schools. We offered 5 seminars, each of them lasted for 16 hours. So we usually entered one school for 4 times for 4 hours. We didn't just give lectures, we also made workshops, and migrants themselves had an opportunity to speak about their personal experiences. This is very important. At Slovenian Migration Institute, we do researchers about our people, really like our people so much going abroad, but also about our people coming to Slovenia, because they become our too. All the kids that come are ours. So we compare this emigration and immigration perspective, and we publish papers about that in books in our scientific journal called Dve domovini, Two Homelands. And I'm an expert in educational system. This book was published in Great Britain last year. I'm proud of it. It was a hard work. But I introduced in it my model. It has 7 criteria, and I don't have time to explain it now. So what can teachers do? And where would they need a support? They would need a support in concrete learning goals in curricula. We need textbooks, we need workbooks to talk about these issues. About Croats living abroad. Why did they leave? Why do they come back? They need to become visible. And also other people coming to Croatia need to become visible. And when we talk about that, we can also talk about integration and discrimination and what kind of support they need in integration processes. We need universities to prepare future teachers so they can face the diversity they see when they start teaching. We need long life education for the teachers that already teach, and we need a new legislation that will actually support integration, and we need to get to know this new legislation, and we need to start implementing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that excellent presentation on the education system. Now we're about to begin the discussion part of the roundtable. So I'd like to invite our guests up here. I just have to get our students to return the chairs. We move them in case the presentation was on. I'll just get our students to return the chairs for us. Evo, super ste vi. Hvala. I just want to make sure. There's a problem we have a little presentation. Not to set everything up. Could I begin by inviting up Dario Magdic to come sit up? Thank you. As we said, our Deputy State Secretary, wherever you like. There will be nowhere to hide. Ivana Luce, would you please come up? From the Directorate for Migration, Citizenship and Administrative Affairs from the Ministry of the Interior. Ivan Aurora, would you please come and join us? The Marketing Manager from the Croatian Heritage Foundation. Dr. Dejan Valentincic, Head of the Center for Social Science Research at the American Slovenian Education Foundation. Dr. Clara Kujar-Ruslenik, I'm trying to pronounce it correctly, who's a research associate and assistant professor and works at the Slovenian Migration Institute. And we've already met Dr. Marijanca Eja Vižentin, who's also a research associate and assistant professor at the Slovenian Migration Institute. Give them a warm welcome. I have the lovely task of questioning our group. Now, today is going to be a little bit different in that, if you like, you can ask questions as soon as somebody finishes discussing a topic. So if you have a question that you think you would like to ask, you may put your hand up and you can ask. And then at the end, I will ask anybody at the end of their discussions, anybody if you have a question there, if you would like to ask. Also our panelist, if one of you discusses something and somebody else would like to ask the other person a question, we can interact within the panel. So it's a little bit interaction. So, I'm going to start. Is this on? Yes. Is it on? Is that on? Yeah. We're starting with the concept. In the title, we discussed attracting, integrating, and retaining returnees. So we're going to begin with the concept of attracting returnees. So how do we actually get people to come to Croatian Slovenia? How do we let them know that they're welcome, that they'd like to be here? For me, myself, I'd come on a holiday with a family, but for me it was really important when actually academics visited Australia. And they said to me, come work with us. And I saw myself, that I had a place there. So this is very interesting, the concept of attracting returnees. So I'd like to start by asking Ivana Rora if you could provide us with an overview of the programs that the Croatian Heritage Foundation, Hrvatska Matica Iseljenika, organized that help to attract returnees to learn about Croatian language and culture.
Thank you, Natasha. Lijepi pozdrav svima. Dobrodošli u Hrvatsku maticu iseljenika. Pozdravljam vas u ime ravnatelja Mije Marića, djelatnika Hrvatske matice iseljenika i svoje osobno ime. Drago mi je vidjeti vas u ovolikom broju, što pokazuje da ova tema doista ima interes i ima poveliki značaj. Hrvatska matica iseljenika tijekom 70 godina svoga postojanja ima doista jednu veliku tradiciju kao spojnica domovine i Hrvata koji žive izvan nje. Ono na što smo se bazirali i na čemu je utemeljen naš rad i što je naša misija i vizija su zapravo naši tradicionalni projekti koji uvelike doprinose i povratku Hrvata izvan domovine. To su prije svega Sveučilišna škola hrvatskog jezika i kulture koju radimo u suradnji sa Sveučilištem u Zagrebu. Polaznici kroz našu školu se susreću sa osnovama hrvatskog jezika što im uveliko pomaže u integraciji u hrvatsko društvo. I ne samo to, uveliko im pomaže u pokretanju i svog vlastitog biznisa jer evo kroz tradiciju nekih 20 godina imamo doista dobre učinke i dobre rezultate. No, mi smo se bazirali i na ove mlađe generacije, to su dakle djeca osnovne škole koji dolaze iz cijelog svijeta i sudjeluju u već našoj tradicionalnoj maloj školi hrvatskog jezika koja je ove godine proslavila 30 godina svoga rada. Upravo kroz malu školu hrvatskog jezika se događaju iznimno zanimljive stvari. Djeca dođu preko ljeta učiti hrvatski jezik, kulturu i baštinu, s njima dođu u pratnji i roditelji, onda dođu i odrasli članovi te obitelji i nerijetko se dogodi da upravo se odluče na povratak. Povratak je neizmjerno težak. Mi u Hrvatskoj matici iseljenika smo se često susretali osobno. Ja sam tu nekih 25 godina i usudim se reći da je povratak stres za cijelu obitelj. Kad kažem stres, onda doista mislim da se radi o velikom stresu jer samo preseljenje iz točke A do točke B je stres. A povratak svih članova obitelji, uključujući i djecu koja se trebaju integrirati u osnovno obrazovanje, srednjoškolsko, pa i fakultete je doista veliki stres. Evo upravo kroz Hrvatsku maticu iseljenika, kroz naše programe, kroz Središnji državni ured, kroz sve institucije zapravo koje u Hrvatskoj na neki način zajednički rade i uvijek pokušavaju, kad nam se neko obrati, riješiti taj problem. Dakle, usudim se reći da iz ove kuće nije izašao nitko ko nam se obratio, a da se nismo potrudili pokušati pomoći. Sa kolegama iz državnog ureda imamo sad i ured dobrodošlice, to je Welcome Service Desk, koji je nama iznimno interesantan, jer zapravo upravo kroz taj put oni koji ne uspiju kroz Hrvatsku maticu iseljenika riješiti svoj problem, evo ga kroz takav jedan desk uspijevaju pronaći put do rješenja onih osnovnih uvjeta integracije. Ali ono što nam je zanimljivo reći da kroz naše škole, kroz naše jezike, kroz naš HIT, mi imamo internetski tečaj učenja hrvatskog jezika koji je doista pokazuje jednu zavidnu razinu znanja, omogućavamo ne samo obiteljima nego i studentima budućim da pri povratku u domovinu dobro izaberu studij, da se integriraju, evo da im na neki način olakšamo upravo taj proces koji je zaista težak, dugoročan, mukotrpan, jer na psihološki moment, ja mislim da ga drukčije doživljavaju odrasle osobe, na jedan način ga doživljavaju osnovnoškolci, a potpuno ga drukčije doživljavaju srednje škole i fakulteti. Evo, Nataša, ti imaš iskustvo, pa mislim da radeći u Matici smo doista uspjeli naći neki put kroz naše projekte olakšati taj proces integracije.
Are there any questions at this point regarding the programs? We can keep going. Okay, I also wanted to ask you, are there any particular programs that the Croatian Heritage Foundation run that are focused on assisting returnees to actually come and study in Croatia, to actually study maybe at university or...
Kroz naše projekte mi smo povezani sa sveučilištima, dakle i sa hrvatskim studijima i sa filozofskim fakultetima, ali kada se pojavi problem koji je vezan za znanje hrvatskog jezika, a on je vrlo čest, pa se dogodi da dijete iz hrvatske obitelji ne uspije ili upisati fakultet ili već na prvom semestru shvati da zbog te jezične barijere jednostavno teško će ići dalje, jer tu onda dolazi i do psihičkih problema, ne mislim problema na razini psihe, nego asimilacije u naše društvo. Onda smo uspjeli kao Hrvatska matica iseljenika pronaći neke druge puteve i povezati se sa veleučilištima u Hrvatskoj, gdje se, nećete vjerovati, nalaze profesori koji su se nekad vratili u Hrvatsku maticu iseljenika, završili fakultete i predaju na tim učilištima. Evo, upravo oni na neki način omogućavaju tim studentima da čak slušaju i predavanja i cijele kolegije na engleskom, ali i ne samo to što smo vidjeli u ovoj vašoj maloj predstavi. To je ono, kada dođete u razred ili kada dođete na predavanje, pitanje koliko će kolega pomoći kolegi. Dakle, ako ne razumije on, a razumijem ja, vrlo rado ćemo to prevesti i svi zajedno naći rješenja, ako treba i pisati kolokvij na engleskom jeziku. Naravno, cilj nam je da se to učini na hrvatskom i cilj nam je da se nauči hrvatski. U Hrvatskoj matici iseljenika nama je doista cilj govoriti hrvatski, razumjeti hrvatski i poticati Hrvate izvan RH da uče hrvatski jezik.
That sounds like a really good program, especially I think the difficulty is, and we're seeing this in Australia as an example with the Croatian language, once it comes to the level where it's impacting on your future career, there has to be available options that people can still achieve while trying to learn Croatian and still be able to maintain their career path. So I think that gives them that opportunity to have both, to come here and learn and have the opportunity to start studying towards their career in Croatia. Okay, our next question, my next question is for Dario. Are there any programs that the Central Office for Croatian Abroad offers that attracts Croatians also to come living from abroad, to come live in Croatia and learn about language and culture?
Thank you, Natasha. Yes, of course, they are. Ja vas još jedanput želim sve srdačno pozdraviti i pokušati malo relaksirati temu i pitanje i približiti ga našoj publici. Vidim da je uglavnom ili većina naše publike srednjoškolske dobi, studentske. Se varam, ne varam, studentske, sveučilište. Bravo, studenti, super. Ok, pa ću na jedan način pokušati približiti teme da budu razumljive i odgovori vama, a naravno i ovome našem diskursu koji bi trebao polučiti neke preporuke i nadam se da će me kolege iz Slovenije razumjeti, jer vjerujte mi, moj engleski jako loš i ne želite ga slušati. Bolje ćete me razumjeti na hrvatskom. Da se vratim na temu. Da, imamo jedan dobar, jako dobar program koji je prilagođen i namijenjen svim uzrastima Hrvata izvan Republike Hrvatske Osoba mora imati minimalno 18 godina i gornju granicu ne određujemo. Ako želi doći u Hrvatsku i učiti hrvatski jezik. Nudimo tečajeve učenja hrvatskog jezika u Republici Hrvatskoj i nudimo online učenje hrvatskog jezika. Dakle, imamo jedan komplet aktivnosti koji se zove program učenja hrvatskog jezika i da pojednostavim, na dvije važne sastavnice se dijeli online učenje, internetsko učenje i učenje uživo u Republici Hrvatskoj. To je jedan od naših najkvalitetnijih i prepoznatljivijih programa i na njega smo jako ponosni. On u svojoj srži i provedbi onako sadržava sve ciljeve kojima mi težimo. I očuvanje identiteta i tradicije Hrvata izvan Republike Hrvatske, jačanje veza sa Hrvatima izvan Republike Hrvatske, a u znatnoj mjeri potiče i povratak i useljavanje u Republiku Hrvatsku. Kako? Znači, najkvalitetnija sastavnica tog programa jesu ti semestralni sveučilišni tečajevi u Republici Hrvatskoj. Svi zainteresirani putem javnog poziva imaju priliku prijaviti se i doći u Hrvatsku učiti na sveučilišnim tečajevima u 7 različitih gradova u Republici Hrvatskoj hrvatski jezik po svim zeroj razinama, od A1 do C2 i boraviti u Hrvatskom. Tijekom svog boravka upoznati svoje vršnjake, istomišljenike iz iste države ili istoga okruženja, zavoliti, upoznati se sa Hrvatskom i velik dio njih, kako je i kolegica Rora rekla, isto se odlučuje na ostanak i u toj komponenti se ogleda ispunjenje ovoga cilja poticanja povratka i useljavanja u Republiku Hrvatsku. Prethodno za neku vrst pripreme imamo online tečajeve koje smo pokrenuli 2018. zajedno sa Filozofskim fakultetom u Zagrebu. Oni su primarno dvije osnovne razine, A1 i A2 razine. Evo ga, i do danas od 2018. tim tečajevima pristupilo 19.000 korisnika, što pokazuje veliku zainteresiranost Hrvata izvan RH za to početno primarno učenje hrvatskog jezika. To su učenje, na primjer, i na španjolskom i na engleskom jeziku i olakšava onda sami proces učenja. Imamo još jedan dobar program online učenja, to su stipendije koje dodjeljujemo za hrvatski internetski tečaj, HIT 1. To je tečaj koji je pokrenula Hrvatska matica iseljenika i sveučilište u Zagrebu zajedno sa računalnim centrom Srce, ako se ne varam. I u tom postupku dodjeljujemo stipendije svima koji su zainteresirani za online učenje hrvatskog jezika. To je u pogledu privlačenja svih zainteresiranih Hrvata izvan Republike Hrvatske, neovisno o njihovom uzrastu, na dolazak i boravak u Republici Hrvatskoj i na učenje hrvatskog jezika kao prve temeljne ili osnovne sastavnice identiteta, ali i onoga najvažnijeg koraka u procesu integracije. Drugi važan projekt koji bi možda istaknuo i neću duljiti je projekt posebnih upisnih kvota. Svi studenti koji su porijeklom Hrvati izvan Republike Hrvatske, ima ih puno, imaju priliku i mogućnost doći u Hrvatsku na sva sveučilišta javno u Republici Hrvatskoj i studirati na hrvatskom ili engleskom, neovisno o tome gdje su i kako završili svoje srednjoškolsko obrazovanje. Ne moraju polagati maturu kao što ste vi morali, vjerojatno. Jel? Znači, to je program posebnih upisnih kvota gdje smo također u dogovoru i suglasju sa drugim institucijama, poput Ministarstva znanosti i obrazovanja i svih drugih naših sveučilišta, otvorili, ja mislim da je ove akademske godine bilo 600 i nešto slobodnih upisnih mjesta na svim sastavnicama, fakultetima, za zainteresirane Hrvate izvan Republike Hrvatske koji su mogli putem te kvote doći u Republiku Hrvatsku i studirati. Paralelno omogućavamo svim polaznicima kvote, odnosno upisanim studentima, i smještaj u učeničke domove. Zaboravio sam i važnu stvar naglasiti prethodno u ovome programu učenja hrvatskog jezika, da je u tu stipendiju uključen također i boravak u studentskim domovima ili učeničkim u gradu Zagrebu i da je osigurana prehrana za sve polaznike toga tečaja i mjesečni džeparac u iznosu stoji nešto sitno eura. Pored ta dva, rekao bi, najvrijednija programa kojima se privlače mladi, prvenstveno zainteresirani za školovanje i studij u Republici Hrvatskoj, provodimo još niz programa kojih se djelomično dotakla i kolegica Rora, a koji imaju za svrhu upoznavanje i približavanje Hrvatske zainteresiranim mladim ljudima izvan Republike Hrvatske. To su programi posjete, organizirana putovanja, stručni posjeti, edukacije, radionice i tome slično. Ja. To su također programi kroz koje se mladi zainteresirani mogu uključiti, doći u Hrvatsku, boraviti 7 do 14 dana po nekoj središnjoj temi, upoznati se malo bolje sa Republikom Hrvatskom, najčešće zemljom svojih predaka, i razmotriti opcije i mogućnosti za daljnji boravak, ostanak u Republici Hrvatskoj ili neki kasniji dolazak. To su možda programi koji su najvredniji u tom smislu privlačenja mladih na dolazak i školovanje i studiju u Republici Hrvatskoj. Ok, nekada davno imali smo u 2-3 glavna grada u Republici Hrvatskoj organizirane te tečajeve, međutim primijetili smo među našim korisnicima i polaznicima da su zainteresirani i voljni doći u druge dijelove Republike Hrvatske. Onda smo krenuli u širenje tog programa, pa smo pored Zagreba i Splita najprije otvorili Rijeku, pa Osijek, pa Zadar i ove godine smo krenuli sa Dubrovnikom i Pulom. 7 različitih gradova u koje, evo ga, Hrvati zainteresirani izvan RH, mladi prvenstveno, imaju priliku doći i učiti hrvatski jezik, boraviti u, složit ćete se, vjerujem, prekrasnim okruženjima ako prođemo od Dubrovnika pa do Osijeka. Imaju što vidjeti za naučiti hrvatski jezik prvenstveno, upoznati se sa kulturom i onda na naše veliko zadovoljstvo, velik broj njih i ostati u Hrvatskoj.
Thank you for that detailed explanation. I'd just like to mention that we do have a colleague here who participated in that program, who is actually streaming this roundtable to all her viewers on her YouTube channel in South America. Camilla, you came to Croatia as part of this program.
Yes, it's my third opportunity. I'm studying in Croatian. And yes, I'm streaming through Tutorial Croatas. That's also with a project that helped your office. So very grateful.
Thank you, Camilla. I just saw her there and thought, wow, we actually have somebody here from that program. Dr. Dejan Valentincic, would you be able to comment on the work of the American Slovenian Education Foundation in this area, how they collaborate with Slovenians abroad, and are there any special programs to attract Slovenians abroad to go to Slovenia and learn language and culture?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. I think that one thing that is very similar to Slovenia and Croatia is that when we are seeking good practices, we are always looking towards Denmark, Ireland, Sweden, but actually, of course, we as two nations are very similar in history, in culture, so maybe this is a great opportunity and we should do this more often, to exchange our ideas and our experiences, to get new ideas. So, as maybe we'll mention later on, many of our policies, state policies, are very similar to what the Croatian colleagues mentioned. But I would say maybe just an interesting point. In the past, I was often very critical towards Slovenian state about their diaspora policies. But nevertheless, I think that they're not so bad. So I was always commenting little mistakes, but overall, a lot has been done. I would say that one kind of weak spot is how to attract people back. Not many very specific policies on this area were established, and that's why non-governmental organization, civil society is so important. So, we have 4 traditional non-governmental organizations, like you have here Matica Iseljenika. So during the Yugoslav times, we also still have Slovenska Iseljenska Matica, but after the Slovenian gained its independence, not all immigrants were with accordance with it because of their past. So now actually it's the smallest of the 4 of them, and we have 3 others. And what they do, they have similar but separate programs, summer camps to learn language, to know the history, the culture, etc. But then new immigrants, people who left Slovenia in the last 30 years, saw that their background is different. So also their needs are different, and that's why one of the initiatives that was started is American Slovenian Education Foundation. It was started by 2 Slovenians who are professors in California, one in Stanford, other in Santa Clara. And their idea was to connect Slovenian academics, professors who work abroad to collaborate professionally, but also in personal terms. So this was started in 2016. Till now, we got 58 professors of Slovenian origin who work at different Slovenian universities, mostly United States, but also Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Denmark, etc. And well, one of the main programs is that every professor who joins the program is willing to accept one Slovenian student for 10 weeks for free, but not as an exchange program, but to work with them in their laboratories, in their offices, etc. So basically, to see how are things done at the best universities in the world. But after some years, we got an idea that also a program in the other direction would be welcome. So now every year we have a call from young people who live abroad to come and spend 10 weeks in Slovenia. But here we are not limited just to academics, but to everyone who wants to come to work in Slovenia. So they come to Slovenia, we provide them a job, and at the same time, besides working in a company or faculty or institute, also they have a course of Slovenian language and different programs, so that on one hand they get to know Slovenian culture, history, etc. Because many other countries have these programs, often called root searching programs. Slovenia never established something like that, so we are trying to do this. But I would say, boast a little bit, that maybe our idea is maybe even a little better, because they don't just come to see the past and the culture, etc., but they also get some professional ties. And after 10 weeks, they know young people from Slovenia who work here, etc. And actually, we are satisfied in both endings, maybe if they go back to countries where they come from, or if they decided to stay in Slovenia. So let me just give you 2 examples. So most of the young people who join this program and come to Slovenia for 10 weeks, most of them are from United States or Argentina, but also other countries. But why mostly these 2 countries? Well, United States, because we have our largest diaspora there, and also it's American Slovenian Education Foundation, so most of our donors come from United States and they know for ASEF. And Argentina, because this community, it's not that big, but it managed to preserve Slovenian identity the most. So they also, the 4 generations still speaks fluent Slovenian, etc. So it's easy to come back. Well, the very interesting difference here is that those who come from Argentina, about half of them decides to stay here. But what I would say, what the catch here is that, of course, someone who emigrates, who comes back, or who comes back after 2 generations, of course, it's not so easy to get a job when you come back. But in our case, if you, as an employee in Slovenia, if you get an email from a professor from Stanford or Harvard, do you have a spot for our student? Of course, then, it's Harvard, we'll find something. And once you are part of the system, it's much easier to stay here. So just, last week, I got an email from one of our alumni who came 4 years ago for 10 weeks. He got a job at the Institute Jožef Stefan, which is our main technical institute, and he just received his PhD a week ago. Yesterday, I just saw on Facebook a girl also coming from Argentina who finished her specialization as a doctor. So she will practice in Slovenia. So many of them decide to stay here because we know that, of course, Argentina has different economic crises very often, and so they're interested in their life in Slovenia. Whereas those who come from the United States, I don't know if you have a case that someone stayed in Slovenia. Mostly they come, they learn more about the country, and they decided to go back. But still, I don't think that this is not a good solution because, well, if not other, they know more about Slovenia, about the language, about the culture, but we also have even better results. Like one girl, to give you an example, so she studied tourism and communication in Boston, And then she came to Slovenia. She was working 10 weeks for one Slovenian tourist agency, and they employed her to prepare a strategy how to promote Ljubljana as a touristic destination in the United States. After she finished her 10 weeks, she returned back to Boston, but this Slovenian agency employed her in Boston, so now she works in Boston for the Slovenian agency, promoting Slovenia and bringing tourists. And of course, if she lives in United States but works for a Slovenian company, I guess that she'll be more motivated to come back to Slovenia more often, to bring children, to maintain ties. So this is kind of our goals. But as I mentioned, of course, ASEF is just one of them, so also other initiatives are. Of course, I don't want to idealize them. Many things are not perfect. Much more could be done, but everyone struggles as we know how. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you make a very important point about making, as we mentioned earlier, that your own professional ties, that helps the person see their identity as have a possibility in the country. But also you mentioned this interesting concept of beginning a transnational type of connection to the homeland of their parents. So in that way, even if they don't have that intention of totally moving, they're making a transnational connection, and they're helping with that, what we call the brain circulation as opposed to brain drain. So I think they're very important points that you make. Thank you for contributing. So these are all about attracting people to come, and the next aspect, once we actually get people to come here, is this concept of integration. And what does integration mean? So when we look at integration, often there's been a standard to just think of it as a set of processes. The person has somewhere to live, the person is enrolled in school, they have healthcare, etc. The parents have a job, that's it, they're integrated. But that's not really the spirit of integration. That's the services that they've gained, but to actually integrate, they need to become a part of our community and have a chance to achieve. So, with that concept at first, one of the first most initial parts of integrating is the actual official documentation and so forth. So, Ivana Lucev, what are the initial important steps involved when a Croatian from abroad is considering moving to Croatia from the perspective of the Ministry of the Interior?
Thank you for your question. I will try to speak in Croatian if that is all right with everybody, because it's a little complicated to explain, as you probably already know if you moved in Croatia from somewhere abroad. Dakle, ako ste hrvatski državljanin, proces je puno jednostavniji i lakši. Dođete u Hrvatsku i dužni ste prijaviti svoje mjesto gdje živite kao prebivalište i za prijavu morate ispuniti određeni obrazac. Unutar 15 dana to prijavljujete u svojoj policijskoj postaji ili upravi prema mjestu prebivališta. Čujemo? I ako prijavljujete negdje, ispričavam se na tehničkim detaljima, da budemo sasvim ispravni, ako prijavljujete negdje gdje je vaša nekretnina, morate donijeti dokaz o imovini ili vas morate, osoba koja je vlasnik te nekretnine, mora dati svoju suglasnost. Također, ako ste punoljetni, morate zatražiti izdaju osobne iskaznice u Hrvatskoj i onda vam je to još jedan dulji proces. Kao što vjerojatno isto znate, Hrvatska je od 20. su na snazi određene izmjene kojima je uvelike olakšeno stjecanje hrvatskog državljanstva za potomke hrvatskih iseljenika. Maknuto je ograničenje broja generacija koja je prošla od vas do originalnog iseljenika. Ne morate više dokazivati znanje hrvatskog jezika i kulture. Ono što vam treba, ne znam, koliko vas je možda, ako smijem pitati, prošlo prijavu te vrste za državljanstvo? Je li ima neko s tim iskustvom? Drago mi je da vas ima. Dakle, onda znate da kao i svi administrativni postupci, zahtjevno je treba skupiti puno različitih potvrda, ali je ipak puno lakše nego bilo koji drugi način stjecanja sa prirođenjem. Dakle, ako ste već to obavili prije, onda vam je jednostavnije regulirati kasnije stvari. No međutim, ako dolazite, a niste stekli hrvatsko državljanstvo, onda je malo proces kompliciraniji. Dakle, ispričavam se, evo morat ću neke stvari pročitati. Dakle, vi morate prvo imati ono kratkotrajno, pa morate prijaviti, odnosno dobiti privremeni boravak i poslije određenog broja godina možete dobiti stalno boravište ili stalno. No međutim, ako imate potvrdu od Središnjeg ureda za Hrvate izvan Hrvatske da ste pripadnik hrvatskog naroda, premda nemate hrvatsko državljanstvo, imate također olakšane uvjete i može se odobriti privremeni boravak, službeno se to zove zbog humanitarnih razloga, i ne morate onda neke uvjete kao što su određena sredstva za uzdržavanje ili zdravstveno osiguranje, i onda možete dobiti na olakšanim načinom privremeni boravak. I nakon neprekidnog dakle ako nemate tu potvrdu, treba vam 5 godina prije nego što možete dobiti, odnosno podnijeti zahtjev za dugotrajno boravište. Ako imate potvrdu nakon 3 godine. A kad regulirate dugotrajni boravak, imate dostup puno većem broju prava nego što imate sa kratkotrajnim boravkom. Ispričavam se na relativno, ali kao svi administrativni postupci, te su stvari, osobito kad morate proći kroz njih, stresne svima. A ako mi dozvolite da samo spomenem malo statistike koja se tiče broja osoba koje su primljene po članku 11. kao potomci hrvatskih iseljenika ili hrvatski iseljenici. Od kad su te olakšice uvedene vidimo veliki porast u broju osoba. Tako 2020. 1107 osoba u toj godini, 2021. 1406, prošle godine 22. 4142 osobe primljene u hrvatsko državljanstvo po članku 11, a ove godine do kraja 9. mjeseca 4022. Dakle, naše kolegice u službi za državljanstvo su pod jako puno posla, ali naravno da ti brojevi nas svih vesele. A još bi bili svi sretniji da svi dođu u Hrvatsku i uključe se i u tržište rada i u sve brojne mogućnosti koje su kolege naveli i da barem na jedan dio vremena dođu ovdje podijeliti s nama iskustvo života u Hrvatskoj, a možda i ostanu i dulje. Tako da, ako ima nekih konkretnih pitanja, kasnije može.
Zašto dolaze sada već ljudi neko prije 10 godina?
Dakle, ovo su brojevi osoba koje su primljene u hrvatsko državljanstvo. Dakle, oni mogu dobiti hrvatsko državljanstvo bez da žive u Republici Hrvatskoj. To su olakšice koje su specifično za potomke hrvatskih iseljenika. Nema ograničenja. Od promjena 2020. nema generacijskog ograničenja. Njihova djeca, prije je bilo da djeca njihova moraju živjeti u Hrvatskoj neko vrijeme, sad ne moraju, mogu izvana dobiti hrvatsko državljanstvo. I to je zapravo naše zajedničko nastojanje da uključimo hrvatske iseljenike i da im pružimo šansu da nam svima bude bliže i jednostavnije. I kad vidite, ja sam imala priliku vidjeti prijave i oni vam često onda napišu u pismima zašto, dakle zašto traže, koji su razlozi i napišu vam i da li se namjeravaju vratiti natrag, često sami, bez da ih pitate. Razlozi su gotovo neizbježno, mi osjećamo povezanost sa Republikom Hrvatskom, često dolaze na različite programe učenja hrvatskog jezika. Oni također, kao što je već bilo spomenuto, imaju mogućnost uključiti se u studij u Hrvatskoj pod povoljnijim uvjetima i to sve zapravo ih privlači. Dosta veliki postotak također kaže da se žele preseliti ili barem u nekom trenutku boraviti. U Hrvatskoj razlozi se navode često bude sigurnost. jer se radi uglavnom, kad pogledate brojeve, većina zahtjeva dolazi iz Argentine, Čilea, a onda ima i iz Australije i Ujedinjenih država. Dakle, dolaze od svugdje, ali dakle, i osobe iz Južne Afrike također. Njih ima relativno malo broja, ali oni se gotovo svi koje sam vidjela prijavu žele se vratiti u Hrvatsku, isto planiraju se vratiti. A od prošle godine uveli smo izmjenu u upitnik koji ide uz zahtjev za državljanstvo kako bi lakše pratili namjeru za preseljenjem. Dakle, to nije obavezan dio upitnika, ali imaju priliku nam reći da li se žele vratiti i što bi htjeli raditi u Hrvatskoj. Tako da.
Ima li statistika možda znate li sada imate zabilježeno koliko je doista se povratilo 20. godine? Da li se tu vidi povećanje?
Dakle, kad se osobe vraćaju, vi možete vidjeti iz koje države dolaze. No, međutim, nema načina da vi vodite statistiku o tome da li oni jesu ili nisu hrvatski povratnici, jer to narušava neke odredbe privatnosti. To bi jednostavno bilo, ne možete, dakle, vi vidite da su oni došli i vidite državljanstvo te osobe. Dakle, vi vidite koliko se hrvatskih državljana uselilo određene godine, vidite iz koje su države došli, ali vi ne znate jesu li to doista potomci hrvatskih iseljenika ili nisu. Vi možete zaključiti da je vjerojatno veći dio osoba koje su se uselile kao hrvatski državljani iz Argentine ili iz Čilea, najvjerojatnije jesu potomci hrvatskih iseljenika. No, međutim, vi nema načina da vi 100% znate koji je broj točno njih, jer se taj dio jednostavno ne može statistički pratiti.
Zanima me samo procjena, da li se možda povećalo poslije 20. godine kad su uvele ove mjere, da li tu vidimo
Je. Ja mogu malo i nadopuniti kolegicu. Ja mislim da je gospođa Marina Perić-Kaselj, ravnateljica instituta, nas ispituje neke stvari, da zna ostala dio publike. Primjetne su promjene, da, ali počeo bi malo sa širim odgovorom, ali molim te, prekini me Nataša, ja kad počnem pričati, da objasnim ovo ispunjavanje. Znači, tijekom više godina, desetljeća, zahtjev hrvatskog iseljeništva je bio da se relaksiraju uvjeti stjecanja hrvatskog državljanstva ukoliko žive izvan Republike Hrvatske za hrvatske iseljenike. I onda je vlada 2018. još započela sa radnom skupinom u kojoj smo i mi bili, nositelji su bili kolege iz Ministarstva unutarnjih poslova, njihov je zakon, kojim su se nastojali relaksirati te teške ili grublje odredbe za stjecanje hrvatskog državljanstva. I nakon što je to relaksirano 20, imali smo pandemiju, pa je onda još određeni rok malo produžen i eksplodirao je interes za stjecanje hrvatskog državljanstva. Razlozi su različiti, jel? Ovdje kad govorimo o sigurnosnom kontekstu, to se odnosi na zemlje Južne Amerike. Oni imaju izrazitu potrebu doći ovdje, nekoliko ljudi ovdje sam vidio već u publici i na to mogu svjedočiti. Mi smo se svakakvih priča naslušali, koliko se oni dive našoj sigurnosti, ne mogu to pojmiti. Recimo, United States, Amerika i neke druge razvijene države imaju neke druge interese i potrebe, tu je malo jeftinije školovanje nego u Hrvatskoj. Ali generalno i u svakom slučaju, stvarno život u Hrvatskoj postaje ugodniji, bolji i kvalitetniji za njih nekoliko godina i to prepoznaju naši ljudi, potomci Hrvatske izvan Republike Hrvatske i ukupan broj tih zahtjeva premašuje 6.000 kad se pridodaju ostale osnove za stjecanje državljanstva po članku 16, članku 4 i tako dalje, a nekad je bio na razini 2.000. Tako da iseljenici su naravno pozitivno odgovorili na tu intenciju i raniji izlazak u susret Vlade Republike Hrvatske koja je relaksirala i olakšala taj zakon, odnosno stjecanje hrvatskog državljanstva. Sad, Marina, odgovor na tvoje pitanje. Ja sam mislio da si ti, ako sam te dobro shvatio, htjela ustanoviti vezu povrataka nakon stjecanja hrvatskog državljanstva. Da. Ova eksplozija podnesenih zahtjeva i odobrenih zahtjeva je, evo ga, najviše sada u 22. jer uglavnom podatke vadimo iz prošle godine i kolegica je rekla da je već u 23. dostignuta razina koja je bila sveukupno 22. samo po članku 11. To je članak temeljem kojeg hrvatski iseljenici stječu hrvatsko državljanstvo. Nije čak ni meni palo na pamet dovoditi u vezu jedno i drugo. Brojevi povratnika i iseljenika iz godine u godinu rastu. To pratimo i to znamo. Temeljem podataka Državnog zavoda za statistiku koji se pune statistikama Ministarstva unutarnjih poslova. Mi već drugu godinu za redu u Hrvatskoj imamo više od 10.000 useljenih hrvatskih državljana. Nekad smo bili na 8.000. Tu je riječ o ovoj migraciji posljednjih godina koja je otišla iz ekonomskih razloga, ali iz godine u godinu se i povećava broj useljenika iz država gdje prevladavaju hrvatske zajednice. Onda dolazimo do jednog problema kojeg nastojimo riješiti zajedno s kolegama u MUP-u, s obzirom da u tom obrascu, kada se oni reguliraju svoj boravak i dolazak u Republiku Hrvatsku, nemamo pripadnost, izraženu pripadnost, odnosno porijeklo, ne možemo detektirati ko su točno Hrvati, a tko su stranci koji dolaze, na primjer, iz Argentine. Ali brojke podosta koreliraju sa brojkama u našim programima, učenja jezika i tome slično i primjetan je rast i tih dolazaka i tekako. Sam govorio na sva pitanja.
For us, it's really interesting. Dario, I still need you. For us, it's interesting. Well, Nasha Ravnateljica, our director, she's heading our research project, which your office finances, where we're looking at the integration or the potential and processes to help integrate people from South America into Croatia. And we actually released a questionnaire. Within about a month and a half, we had 50 people fill in that questionnaire from South America, indicating they wanted to move to Croatia and when can they. For them, many already had citizenship, but many didn't. And I suppose you touched on this, but I'd like, Dario, you to explain this a bit more. From our perspective, when we think, I might move to Croatia, from the point I don't have citizenship right now to the point of my move needs to be short, because things happen in your life. Like I might get offered a different job, something else might happen. If we have to wait until we have citizenship, a year and a half, etc., the moment moves. I know you mentioned your office can give a particular paper in this area to help the situation. Would you be able to explain that a little bit more?
Yes, of course I can, but in Croatian, please. Dakle, u tom sveukupnom procesu administrativno-upravnog sustava nastojimo stvarno olakšavati ljudima i pojednostavljivati stvari, jer uz tu osnovnu barijeru nepoznavanja hrvatskog jezika i života u nekoj drugoj državi ljudima je i više nego administrativnih problema u okruženju, da mi nastojimo to olakšavati. To se radi sukcesivno, postupno, nije lako uvijek sustave i zakone mijenjati u našem okruženju, ali trudimo se. Prvi iskorak je napravljen sa tim olakšanjem postupaka hrvatskog državljanstva. Onda smo opet zajedno s kolegama u MUP-a i Zakon o strancima promijenili, gdje smo uveli tu jednu odredbu i mogućnost da svi koji useljavaju u Republiku Hrvatsku, a nemaju hrvatsko državljanstvo, dođu u naš ured, jave nam se i po određenim osnovama, kao potomci, pripadnici hrvatskog naroda, moraju dokazati porijeklo na određeni način, dobijaju potvrdu koja im omogućava onda olakšanu prijavu privremenog boravka, kasnije stalnoga, mogu ići raditi, uključiti se na tržište rada, mogu dobiti stipendiju, mogu studirati. Imaju niz drugih olakšica kao pripadnici hrvatskog naroda. Na taj način radimo malu pozitivnu diskriminaciju potomaka hrvatskog naroda u smislu ako dolaze kao stranci. Odgovor na tvoje pitanje uvodno i za sve naše gledatelje i za sve vas bi bio dođite vi u Hrvatsku bez obzira na državljanstvo. Kad dođete, mi ćemo vam pomoći, stvarno. Znači, nakon što sletite na Franju Tuđmana ili negdje drugi zračnu luku, javite se u naš ured dobrodošlice. To je jedan mali ured, ustrojstvena jedinica u našem uredu, u Palmotićevoj ulici, by the way. I tamo će vas dočekati i objasnit će vam kako ubrzati i olakšati postupak za stjecanje hrvatskog državljanstva ako zahtjev podnosite ovdje u nekoj od policijskih uprava u Republici Hrvatskoj. Naravno, moram se ograditi i reći da nije sve tako jednostavno. Svaki slučaj je zaseban, specifičan. Moraju se pregledati svi dokumenti, detaljno to kolege savjesno i odgovorno u Ministarstvu unutarnjih poslova rade. A mi imamo još jednu mogućnost koju nam daje naš zakon, da nakon podnošenja zahtjeva po osnovi pripadnosti hrvatskog narodu požurimo ishođenje nekoga državljanstva i nekog postupka, odnosno za nekog požurimo stjecanje i dobivanje te domovnice. ukoliko se odlučuje možda i na ostanak u Republici Hrvatskoj ili tome slično. Jel? Znači, kolege su potpuno posvećene tim procesima. Na razini godine oni prime oko 10.000 raznih upita u uredu dobrodošlice, ali ova dva postupka koja su omogućile izmjene Zakona o državljanstvu i Zakona o strancima olakšavaju i nama rad da potomke hrvatskog naroda bez državljanstva lakše uvodimo i integriramo kroz društveni sustav u Republici Hrvatskoj.
That's a really important factor when you're planning to move, especially if you're planning to move with a family. Are you able to come here, find work, etc.? And when you're planning when I will move, if it's a big question mark, then it's difficult. But in that process, there's a bridge which is very useful. Thank you. So when we're looking at integrating also, our students, when they enter the school system in Croatia, it was excellent listening to the school system in Slovenia and how much support they actually get. In Croatia, our policy at the moment is there's no distinction between Croatians who were returned or coming from abroad or general migrants who come, and they receive 70 hours support of Croatian language outside of the classroom in a special class, and if needed, if it's determined they're needed, they can receive up to 35 hours or another 75 hours. After that situation, then they are part of the standard classroom and they receive extra help for Croatian language like other students in the dopunska class that happens an hour each cycle. So our system, even though we have less, I think Croatia is making a start towards trying to improve the situation here with a lot of work to do. So when we look at actually, that's where we're standing in Croatia. We have noticed from a lot of our research from returnees that it isn't enough. They need more support and ways we can give some more support. And we are seeing that in Slovenia you are doing these things. This is why we really appreciate this collaboration. And we're trying to figure out ways that we can do this. How can we provide more support? What are different models? And we're looking towards different countries and versions of how we can do this and how we can collaborate across different offices. But at this point, we'd like to hear from Dr. Clara. Can you please explain to us the system for Slovenians from abroad who moved to Slovenia? Are there any special considerations for returnees, or is it similar to Croatia?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for having us here today. Yeah, as you said already, Marianca has already spoken about the Slovenian education policy, but I will be a little more critical as always. As it was already told, we are both working at Slovenian Migration Institute, where we focus on both immigration and emigration issues. In recent years, we have conducted a few projects dealing with the question how to attract immigrants back. And one of them was also carried out in collaboration with Dejan and Asef. And I can say that lessons learned from all these projects are pretty the same. The results show that one of the most or the biggest inhibiting factors for returning is family. If family members don't speak Slovene, it is hard for spouses to find a job and for kids to integrate in Slovenian education system. Why? Not only because Slovenian language is pretty hard to learn, but also because Slovenian education system do not provide special support for the kids of returnees. Pretty similar situation than in Croatia. In accordance with Slovenian education policy, the children of returnees whose native language is not Slovenian are treated the same as immigrants, and they are entitled to additional language courses. In a case they speak Slovene, they do not get any kind of support. And we all know that language is not just a communication tool, but it requires a lot of knowledge of grammar and literature and so on. And moreover, there are also a lot of issues related to the language courses for migrants. There are different unsystematic ways of learning Slovenian schools. And the number of hours of these lessons are neither fixed or sufficient, and it depends on the number of migrant children enrolled in each school. So it can be from 120 hours for a group up to 4 students to 180 hours for a group up to 18 students. And then schools provide these lessons differently, before or after class, sometimes also during the class. And usually schools form teaching groups according to their personnel capabilities, not taking into account students' age or prior knowledge or mother language. So, although the number of hours of Slovene lessons is way higher than it was a few years ago, and it's also higher than in Croatia, I can say that many challenges remain. We have to do and work on it. So if I sum up here at this point, if a country wants to attract immigrants back, I believe that it needs to create proper conditions for them and their families, besides reducing bureaucratic obstacles, offering more attractive job opportunities, providing better living conditions for young families, also helping kids to integrate into education system. And I think that we all here know that integration is not just about learning language.
Thank you very much. I think you make some important points there. I will give a comparison. I try not to do it too much. I don't often go around saying in Australia, as you all know, but I will give it a comparison on this issue, simply because Australia had many of the same issues. We had a lot of, but in this sense, we weren't attracting returnees. The country needed to attract migrants in general. And we can acknowledge that English is a much easier language to learn than Croatian or Slovene. Except for, no, you speak English fine. However, they noticed many problems. And I think when we look at this situation, we need to look at it also, we need to look at the individual, the society, and the country's, our vision for our country and our community. And when we look at it from that way, we consider what is going to happen to these children. When the children move, if they're not engaged in education, what if they were amazing, they had the potential to create some new invention? They come to Croatia or Slovenia and they don't learn, at first they're learning Croatian and Slovenian, they're Slovene, they're trying to learn the language, their fellow students are learning math science concepts, they're trying to actually learn trokut, like in our drama example, while they're learning the actual knowledge. For these students, it's very difficult to achieve. And if we don't provide them help, where are they going to go? I know that in Australia, the current policy, it was not this way before. But now they've realised if everybody succeeds in this country is going to be much better for all of us. So they actually offer up to 7 years help in English language. Now, if you are a parent and you've moved to Australia, you can have English for free just because you want to socialise with local Australians. So, but the children are given up to 7 years. They also have an opportunity, if there's an area with a lot of students, I always fantasise that we can have some target schools that do this in Croatia, where we can attract returnees to come to these schools. That those, instead of going to standard English classes, they go to English as a second language. So they're there 4 times a week, up to 2 hours, continuously. And often those students perform better on English tests than the local students. We sit in our normal classrooms as teachers trying to figure out how to make sure our new students know the difference between firstly, and then initially. How can they use higher language structures so they can achieve, so they can go to university? And I know that Australia is a big country, it has money, it has a history of migration. So when I do say that, I want to say that I'm still proud of where our countries are, because we're new in this attracting people to return. It's only new, and we have to be proud of our achievement, but we also need to look to where we're going. I find that in Croatia also, we're having many issues with parents about if they've come here, for example, and their children have been here for 3 years in primary school, then they're in the normal system to enroll into high school, and there's a point system. And then all of a sudden, if you don't achieve fives, pretty much almost, fours and fives, your child doesn't get to go to gymnasia, your child doesn't get to go to university. So I myself nearly left Croatia 2 years ago for that reason, as some of you might know, but I found other ways to stay. So this issue is big, because when parents are sitting there, we're finding wealthy parents, business people who have come here to contribute, picking up and leaving because of this, because of their children. And they're thinking, if I stay here, my child doesn't get to go to gymnasia unless they go to the American school, but that wasn't the point of coming here. So I think it's really important to look at these different systems. So we'll go on to Diane. I would like to ask you if you could actually let us know, in your previous work in government also and as a researcher, what other issues did you find? Did you find any issues with returnees integrating into the school community and their families, from the family's perspective?
Yes, so as you mentioned, I spent 5 years of my career at the governmental office for Slovenians abroad, and at that time we were only starting to develop some policies for attracting returnees, but let me reach a little bit in history. So after the Slovenia gained its independence in 1991, this wasn't a big issue in Slovenia. I would say it's a difference with Croatia somehow. And then the first time that we were kind of put in this position was in 2000, 2001, when there was an economic crisis in Argentina. At that time, the country was not prepared for it at all. So it was all organized by the civil society, especially different Catholic organizations. And it's even one kind of anecdote from that time that, those organizations, non-governmental organizations, they organized a working group, to coordinate. And they invited also a representative of the governmental office, and he said, no, there would be a conflict of interest for me to be there. So, but afterwards, we kind of saw that that's not the right approach. So in 2006, when a special law for relations with Slovenians abroad was adopted, a special chapter was dedicated to repatriation. But it was mostly limited to countries that got into crisis, economic or military crisis or something like this.